Hello, and welcome to the Rosewood Institute webinar series, Not Just Horsing Around, Equine Therapy for Eating Disorders with Cheryl Music. Cheryl is a group specialist at Rosewood Centers for Eating Disorders and is EGALA Advanced Certified. My name is Nancy Berry. I'm the Marketing Communications Specialist at Rosewood. I want to begin by thanking you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us, and also let you know that time permitting, we will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. There will be a screen with the email address where you can send your questions. And at this time, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Cheryl. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and I'm really excited to be here, and thank you, everyone, for joining me today. The subject I'm speaking on is one of my passions. Ever since I was a little girl, 4 years old, and had my first pony ride, I just had a great passion for these beautiful animals. And now I have the privilege of working alongside of them with the intent of helping people heal. And that's a great privilege and honor, and it's a wonderful thing. Before we begin, Nancy, I'd like to have everyone look at the intro slide. When you see the little red pony, the little miniature horse, that's Emma. Now, Rosewood purchased Emma several years ago from a rescue. Emma was used for breeding. So her job was to actually produce babies that would be sold after they were weaned. Emma came to us very unhealthy. Her ribs were showing. She looked starved, kind of like anorexia, and which wasn't her fault at all. She had a torn eyelid, which someone had neglected to have repaired by a vet. Her teeth are very crooked. You can kind of see in the picture she's got fun teeth, but actually they're all crooked in the back. She has trouble chewing effectively, but she does an okay job. And her emotional status was sad. She was shy and frightened. She really didn't know how to handle human interaction in a gentle way. So we took her in and we fed her just as we do our clients. We spent time with her and treated her gently and kindly. And through all of that work, she was restored. She now is socially interactive with humans and the other horses. Her coat is shiny. Her ribs no longer stick out. She has a brightness to her eyes. And actually now she does a good job of paying it forward and helping people to heal. So we're real proud of Emma. Now, now that you've met little Emma, I'd like to go over the objectives for this presentation. The goal is to learn to differentiate between equine therapy and horsemanship, learn to assess appropriate equine interventions, and matching therapy horse to client. Now, moving to the next slide, why horses? Why would we use these four-legged animals to help people in the mental health field? So I often get this question, why horses? And how can they help? Actually, we consider our horses to be important members of our EAP team, which is Equine Assisted Psychotherapy. So we have a therapist who is a licensed therapist. We have, who is certified, we have a horse professional, and then we have a horse or one or more horses, actually. With EAP, there is no magic tricks, secret formulas, or special training for the horses. Really, everything you see is natural horse behavior. Sometimes it's real fun because the clients will accuse me of setting them up or having a secret training cue for the horses. And in fact, the only criteria I expect from these horses in the EAP programs is that they're gentle, and that would be in the arena and the hitch rail, and they could also handle some pressure on the ground without resorting to frustrations that lead to kicking and biting. Everything else you see is simple, natural horse behavior. Horses, just like humans, need a break now and then, so we will be watching. These horses do, this is their job and they do work, so we watch for burnout, just like a staff person may burn out. Our horses are rotated between sessions. If they do appear irritable, then they're given a little break. So let's move on to talk about horses in the herd. So horses live in a herd hierarchy. That's their family system. And they have an obvious pecking order. Each herd has an alpha, and the members of the herd understand exactly who that alpha is. In a wild herd, there will be an alpha male or a stallion, and an alpha female, and she would be a mare. Horse herds can replicate the human family, and by watching the members of the herd interacting, we can kind of identify which horse might represent a certain person, a certain individual. When the clients are watching, we may ask a question, who does the horse remind you of? Which members of the family do you identify with in these horses? And often the clients will identify with at least one of the horses and be able to pick out horses that they connect with their family members. And then we do want to talk about personalities, moods, and attitudes. Horses have distinct and individual personalities, moods, and attitudes. Some are mischievous and fun, and others are business-minded, perhaps a bit grumpy. I want to talk about a horse I once rode by the name of Crystal. She was an Arabian horse. And every time you would go to saddle this horse, she would glare and pin her ears, kind of threatening. When you went to tighten the saddle, she would grind her teeth loudly. She wanted everyone around her to understand that she wasn't happy with the situation. However, once one would put their foot in the stirrup and swing their leg over into the saddle, she turned into a very happy horse. Crystal loved to be ridden. She would come to life. Her ears perked, and you could actually feel the energy underneath the saddle as she trotted along on the trail. So I think from her affect, she enjoyed the experience as much as her rider. Now, horses have the amazing ability to communicate non-verbally and also read the non-verbal cues of others. In a wild herd, this is necessary for self-preservation. If an alpha horse decides he wants the food that another horse, maybe number 2 in the lineup, is eating, number 2 will instantly recognize the alpha horse's body language as he approaches him. He recognizes the deliberate stride, the tail swishing, and the pinned ears. If horse number 2 doesn't move fast enough, he'll understand the alpha's body language by snaking his neck, baring his teeth, and biting and kicking. The alpha is the leader, and he will definitely take control. However, horse number 2 has a choice. He can either fight for his food and perhaps win the respect of the alpha and move up in the hierarchy, or he can submit and allow the alpha to take his place and eat his food. This is a natural behavior found in the horse herd. Horses can read humans in the same way. If a person is fearful and timid when entering the herd, the horse will recognize and respond either by disrespecting the human or submitting. I remember a lesson, there was a lesson horse by the name of Tigger. He was cranky about being groomed, but he really enjoyed being ridden. But he enjoyed being ridden by experienced handlers. Tigger had a bad habit of taking advantage of his novice students. I remember watching as an unfortunate rider repeatedly squeezed and thumped his sides, trying to get him to move forward. But old Tigger pinned his ears and backed up several steps every time the student kicked him. So, exasperated, he finally summoned staff for assistance, and the student was asked to dismount, and the instructor swung on board. Well, not surprising, Tigger instantly modified his behavior. He responded beautifully as a well-behaved and relaxed riding horse. Tigger was actually demonstrating natural horse behavior by simply responding to the level of assertiveness exerted by his handlers. Like humans, all horses are unique. Some horses are energetic and alert, like little children not wanting to miss a thing, and others are lazy and content to stand around the barn switching flies. Horses can get bored, frustrated, lonely, confused, frightened, all the emotions that humans experience. The difference, though, is that humans often hide their feelings. Now, I want to just tell you a little about horses. Horses never wear a mask. They're genuine, they're open, and they're honest. If a horse wakes up on the wrong side of the corral, everyone is going to know it by their verbal and nonverbal behaviors. Horses model the importance of effective communication skills. They are experts at boundary setting and possess great communication skills. Anytime a person steps into the horse corral, they've entered the herd. Clients will learn to communicate with confidence and set boundaries if they're to earn the respect of the members of the herd. As we can see by the story of Tigger, the client will need to learn that there are natural and sometimes risky consequences for allowing the horse to remain in the alpha position. and that by using assertive communication skills, the client can and should become the alpha of the herd. By setting boundaries with the horse, the client learns how to set boundaries with humans. So there's a great lesson there for our clients to learn through working with the horses. Now, another aspect of horses is that they are large animals and can be intimidating to a person unfamiliar with them. An average horse can weigh between 800 to 1,200 pounds. And standing beside a horse can feel overwhelming, much like the feelings experienced by someone with an eating disorder who sits at the dinner table during a meal. Facing those fears and anxieties while working with the horse in a therapeutic session, clients are challenged to confront other frightening issues in their own recovery process. Now, horses can also teach us about self-care. Horses understand their own need for food, hydration, rest, and also companionship. As clients observe horses caring for their most basic needs, such as eating and drinking, they can formulate a picture of how their own basic needs have been neglected while active in their eating disorders. Well, I like to use humor a lot when I work with the clients and the horses. So sometimes the clients witness the horses eliminating. They lift their tail and out comes the green road apples. So in fascination, our clients will often respond with, "Ew!" I love to come back with the question, "Are you jealous?" It is so much fun to see their shocked faces for a split second before they erupt into laughter and admit, "Well, yes, as a matter of fact, we are jealous." And I will come back with this opportunity to discuss the fact that animals and human bodies respond when properly cared for with good nutrition and hydration. It's funny how the horse's natural functions can be used in the moment to teach a life lesson. It's another great teachable moment. So let's talk about body image. Body image comes up a lot in equine therapy sessions. Horses actually have great body image. I love to demonstrate this again by using more humor and pointing out the various sizes of the horses in our herd. I may ask if Jack seems concerned that his butt is bigger than Rosie's or that Rosie's chest is bigger than Emma's. Just talking about this is guaranteed for a laugh, but it also helps our clients to begin thinking about their own body image issues. Moving on to grief and loss. Horses are also sensitive to grief and loss. When a horse is bonded with another in the herd and that horse is taken away, the horse responds with sadness and anxiety. The horse may pace for days, stop eating, and whinny in a pitiful manner. It's interesting then to watch the reaction of the horse when people are sad or lonely. Often the horse will stand quietly, allowing the person to cry and hug their neck. Jack is a great hugging horse, and we use him for those sessions. And also Emma, something interesting happened that I wanted to take note of. One day we had a very sad client, very upset, very sad, and decided to sit next to the arena and was weeping loudly. Emma was in the middle of the arena, minding her own business, and suddenly she heard the weeping, and it was actually weeping and wailing. The little horse picked up her ears, looked toward where the sound was coming from, walked all the way deliberately to the client, and stood right at the fence where she was sitting, and allowed the client to come to reach through the fence and scratch her and rub her. This was one of the most fantastic moments for me as an equine professional, and to this day I'm still touched by it, in wonder at her sensitivity, this little horse's sensitivity to someone who was hurting. So they are very sensitive to human emotion. Let's move on to OCD. When a client has issues with OCD, the horse stable is a great place to practice exposure therapy. Clients may stand back from the group frightened, and it's important to check in with the client to assess what is going on for them. At first glance, it may seem that the client is frightened of the horse. However, a client struggling with OCD will most likely, as we know, have difficulty touching the horse, grooming tools, or even walking on the sand in the arena where germs reside from urine and manure. More than once I've had a client afraid to step on the arena because their shoes would be contaminated. Once the client can gather the courage to touch the horse, even for a moment, he or she will have the opportunity to sit with their feelings until the session ends. There is no sink, soap, or hand sanitizers at the barn. Often, after several weeks of exposure to the horse environment, the client becomes less fearful and is able to participate in the entire session, and that's just phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, when that does happen, group members give them a pat on the back and congratulations and good job, because that's a frightening thing to face, those OCD issues, especially at a place where there is dust, flies, hay, and other various things to be concerned about. So moving on, it's important to recognize the difference between horsemanship and equine therapy. We often get questions regarding the variations between horsemanship, equine-assisted therapy, and equine-assisted psychotherapy. And also, well, before we go any further, let's look at those definitions. Let's look at the word equine. Equine means relating to or resembling a horse or the family of the horse. This includes horses, zebras, and donkeys. The word equine is actually pronounced equine or equine. You've probably heard it both ways, and the difference in pronunciation is actually preference and nothing more. You can find the word pronounced both ways in any circle of horsemen and women, nationally and internationally. The definition for horsemanship is the art of riding a horse. I like to include skills with horses also. That's Cheryl's definition. And then also the definition for equine therapy or equine-assisted therapy is therapy assisted by the use of a horse and or its movement, including equine-assisted psychotherapy, horseback riding, and hippotherapy. Now, hippotherapy has nothing to do with hippos. And for the sake of time, I won't be able to get into the explanation, but it is very phenomenal how hippotherapy is used. But for the sake of time, I've included a link if you're interested in researching therapeutic riding for the disabled. And there's your link. Let's move on to equine-assisted psychotherapy. This is therapeutic interventions involving horses and an EAP team used to assist clients in gaining insight and knowledge about oneself while experiencing natural horse behaviors often related to human behaviors through metaphors. EAP is most often used in the mental health field. However, horsemanship can also be utilized to address issues with fear and also to increase communication skills. Today, however, we'll be talking exclusively about EAP, which is groundwork with a horse rather than riding on a horse. A typical, as we've discussed earlier, a typical EAP team consists of a qualified and certified therapist, an equine specialist, and a horse or horses. Now, the next slide, we'll be talking about when to use equine-assisted psychotherapy for eating disorders. So I'm just going to run through this list. Clients presenting with low self-esteem and poor self-image, ineffective communication skills and boundary issues, difficulty eating or overeating, anger, fear, anxiety, trauma, and lack of trust, and also grief and loss and OCD. Now, we need to talk about matching the horse to the client. And I'm going to kind of go through some case examples here. Because each horse is an individual, it's important to know each of their personalities and quirks, as well as the needs of the clients we're working with. For example, Client 1 and Rosie. This is Rosie, the miniature horse. She's mistaken for a Shetland pony and looks like one. However, she is a miniature horse, a little larger miniature horse. Client 1 struggles with anorexia, presents with low self-esteem, poor eye contact, and an inability to speak up for his needs. Rosie, the miniature horse, is sharp, alert, and sometimes stubborn. She is quite talented at recognizing when a person is not willing to set boundaries with her and takes full advantage of the opportunity to ignore the requests of her passive handler. Thus, Client 1 will need to make the decision to continue to allow Rosie to be the boss or to learn assertive skills and set boundaries with her. So, moving on, Client 2 and Emma. Client 2 is a victim of emotional and sexual abuse and has a history of binging and purging multiple times a day. Client is distant and angry, lashing out at staff and peers. Emma, the miniature horse, also suffered physical and emotional neglect as well as sexual trauma as she was overused as a broodmare. Emma, as we learned earlier, was starving and unkempt when finally rescued. Client 2 is at first uninterested and hostile, but after hearing Emma's story, Client 2 cautiously connects with the little horse. A relationship begins as the client spends quiet time brushing her coat and looking into her trusting brown eyes. This trust relationship will eventually transfer to human relationships. Now we're going to talk about Client 3 and Jack. Client 3 is a binge eater who has been bullied for years. The abuse began at home as she was the largest child of her 3 siblings. Her mother compared her to her 3 sisters and put her on a diet at age 8. The client watched longingly as her siblings ate dessert and she was given an apple. Her sisters would point and laugh at her. The abuse escalated at school as students taunted her in the hallways and wrote cruel messages on her binder. Now Jack is a tall, gentle quarter horse and the largest horse in the herd, yet he has consistently been bullied by other horses. Other horses drove him away from his food and he didn't get enough to eat due to the bullying. When Client 3 meets Jack, she notices how calm and peaceful he appears. Jack responds to her voice, turns his head to greet her. He seems non-judgmental and listens when she speaks. Client 3 feels that the horse seems to understand as she reaches around his neck to give him a warm hug. It was so touching to watch as she formed a bond and a trust relationship with the horse. As she took the risk to open herself to trust this enormous animal, so she discovered that there may be other safe people she can open herself up to. All right, and moving on, I would like to talk briefly about working with adolescents. From my experience, adolescents tend to be either very enthusiastic and eager to work with the horses or rigid and resistant. There seems to be very little middle ground with the kids. When the group arrives, it's apparent who wants to participate and who doesn't. You don't have to be a horse to read the nonverbal language of the adolescent group members. Typically, the clients who don't want to participate will stand towards the back. Arms crossed, flat affect, and eyes downcast. The rest of the group are usually excited to touch the horses and may have many questions about them as we get the session started. I find it fun and exciting working with them, whether they're happy to participate or not. I'll usually encourage them to get involved, even if it's simply brushing a horse for a short time. This can be difficult when it's a client that's resistant. However, each session will work on at least touching the horse and perhaps getting to the point of bonding. And I always tell our clients, equine therapy is not about falling in love with horses. It's what horses can teach us, humans. So, and also clients can learn simply by sitting back and watching the process, watching their peers working with the horses. I want to move on to the next slide. Our adolescent clients range between the ages of 12 and 17. I want to talk about times when our adolescent clients may be feeling lonely, homesick, confused, angry, all those things that adolescent clients deal with. And especially when they first arrive, they're feeling very alone and very frightened and homesick. So our horses can provide the comfort that's needed. Sometimes just a hug. Jack, though large in size, again, I talked about this earlier, he has a gift for hugging. It will actually lean his head into the client. This horse is an Arabian, and this client was quite comforted by this horse as he hugged him and just spent some quiet time with him. The rest of the group just sat back and allowed him to have this quiet time. Often, clients gravitate toward the stable area when they're escalating. So if they're getting upset and they decide to take a little run from the building, usually we can go to the stables and find someone there, a client there, either talking to a four-legged friend or petting a horse through the fence line, just getting that comfort that they're longing for. Often I'll see therapists meeting with the clients at the stables in that quiet refuge. It's really a sweet place to be meeting with people and receiving that comfort that's needed. Now, another important aspect of equine therapy is the need for self-care and nurturing, as seen in this next slide. By caring for the horse's basic needs, such as feeding, bathing, and grooming, adults and adolescent clients experience the satisfaction of nurturing another living being. It's typical to see clients bond with the horses during the grooming sessions. Often during these sessions, clients will mention their own need to use good self-care. I'll always ask them what they got out of that session. It seems silly to be brushing a horse and think that therapeutically they could get something from this. Some of the terms they use is relaxation. I I was present and out of my head. I experienced serenity today while I was working with this horse. I was calm and relaxed. So it's really quite a calming and serene moment for the clients while they're working with self-care and also with the peace that comes with it. I also want to talk about communication. Moving on. As with adult clients, adolescents often resort to ineffective techniques to communicate. During equine therapy sessions, our young clients learn various techniques to develop more effective communication skills and also skills for conflict resolution. More than any work I do with equine therapy, my favorite sessions are done with families, as you'll see on the next slide. As we work on conflict resolution, it can move right into family work. Family members arrive every month for Adolescent Family Week, and they participate in a Family Week equine therapy session. Since metaphors play an important role in the sessions while working with the horses, the family therapist can observe how the clients and their families respond to the horse and also to one another as they're working with the horse. For instance, Dad might be very controlling, and he might be out in the arena controlling everything that goes on with the group members. He might be orchestrating what each group member needs to be doing, each family member needs to be doing, and actually controlling where the horse moves. Mothers who feel helpless might step back and decide to give up and allow the family members to take over. So it's very important to step back and watch the process. Group sessions can also be utilized for team building. As the group members brainstorm to solve challenges, they experience success in learning to work together as a team. They also come to realize the need for support in their own recovery process. Speaking of process, moving on to group processing. Group processing takes place after each session. It's important to integrate the horse into the questions asked of the group. For instance, what was it like when the horse didn't move? Often a simple question like this related to the horse will bring up issues related to true-to-life relational issues for the client. So the horse may metaphorically become the person in that client's life who refused to move and invaded the client's boundaries. The client may have felt helpless and vulnerable. However, by working with the horse, the client will gain insight and hopefully new skills to improve the outcome of future similar situations. As you can see, there's a lot to talk about in relation to equine-assisted psychotherapy. We've really barely scratched the surface during this presentation. But I have certainly enjoyed sharing all this information with you and being able to talk about one of my great passions, and that is working with the horse and working with clients.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate your time with us today. For those that are viewing this, I wanted to let you know that I put up Sylvia Gargan's email address, and you can send us your questions now to Sylvia. She'll pass those on to us. But we actually only have a couple of minutes for questions right now. Please do not hesitate to send your questions. We will get to them even after this presentation. But as I sent out the invitation, Cheryl, I kept getting one question over and over that I'd like to start with, and it's how can I begin the certification process and get started?
That is a great question, Nancy, and we do get that question a lot, even by clients sometimes. So I personally, there are some great organizations out there, but I personally would recommend EAGALA, and that is Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, and that is at www.eagala.org. And the reason I say this is because EAGALA is an internationally recognized and reputable organization formed in 1999. It offers great training opportunities, certification programs, and also guidance to begin and continue your mental health practice. So it's important, though, I just want to say as a disclaimer, it's really important to receive proper training and become certified before you begin this type of work with our clients.
Okay, our first question from the audience. Clients with eating disorders are often medically and cognitively compromised. Isn't this dangerous when asking them to work with horses?
You know, that's another great question. And that's what I love about Rosewood. Rosewood is, our staff is multidiscipline. And that means that we have doctors and nurses and psych doctors, and we have techs, therapists. So the dietitians and the medical doctors work together as a team to assess each and every patient or client, and when they do so and feel that this client is medically stable enough to begin working with the horses, they actually notify the team and release them to actually participate in that activity.
Okay, and another question, are clients ever too frightened to participate in equine therapy?
Yeah, we touched on that before, and actually, yes, that is true. Some clients, we've had some clients who have been in horse-related accidents. Maybe they've fallen off. We've actually had clients who witnessed someone getting killed on a horse, falling off or being drugged. And it's very important then to work slowly with that client. Most often we're able to work through those issues, and there's different techniques, for instance, working with Emma instead of with Jack. There's a big difference in their size. Maybe just allowing them to sit back on the bench and enjoy watching other people work with them and the safety that's involved there at the stables. So there's various ways that we work with our clients, but occasionally we'll have a client who really just can't get past it, and at that point they can come down to the stables and just be an observation-only client.
And our last one, we had a few clients write in, of our professionals, that would like to hear more about equine therapy intervention.
And I think that's great. So funny thing that should come up, because Nancy, we are going to continue this talk next month. I've been invited back on September 25th to actually talk on equine assisted psychotherapy interventions, and I'm very, very excited about that.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate your time, and for all of our viewers today, we appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us. And again, if you have questions, continue to send those in. We will get the answers for you and email them right out. If you'd like a copy of the slide presentation, please contact Sylvia Gargan at sylvia.gargan@rosewoodranch.com. Thank you, and we hope you have a great day.